Welcome to the No Vacation Required podcast, where we break down tired traditions and outdated thinking by asking the question, why are we still doing that? It's all about building a life you don't need a break from, being more present and fulfilled, and showing up in a complicated world that needs your voice and unique talents.
Why are we still attempting to mind read rather than ask, when the latter is the true path to understanding and connection? The persistence of mind reading often stems from fear, whether it's the fear of confrontation, rejection, or appearing vulnerable. Reliance on assumptions creates completely avoidable drama, prevents us from genuine dialogue, and it robs both parties of the opportunity for deeper empathy. So that's what we're talking about today.
It's time for Mindshare, where we share what's on each of our minds. Kaanan, do you have anything today?
I do. I'm actually going to hijack our Mindshare for a little bit of a PSA. A very special episode of Mindshare. We just voted, and even though I think this is going out after this off-cycle election, I would just want to put out there, make sure you're voting, especially in these off-cycle elections, because these are the ones that really matter, and shockingly few people show out for them. Also, here in Washington State, we get to vote by mail, and we have since the 80s or something. And we kind of take it for granted that we get to sit at home at our kitchen table and go over our ballots and read about the different ballot measures and politicians and the like.
Have more flexibility to vote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
we totally do it on our time. And so I just want to throw out there, if you're somewhere where you don't get to vote by mail, ask yourself why that is, because I can promise you it's not election security.
So why are we still mind reading? I just finished a nonfiction book where some pretty terrible things happen. And throughout the book, it's very much a vibe of, I don't know the answer to that because we don't talk about that. I can't ask my grandfather that because he won't talk about it. A patchwork of people having to guess what's happening, what other people are thinking, simply because that's not how that family or those families work. And of course, Kaanan, it was making me think of the work we do and how this kind of thing comes up all the time where people just aren't communicating. We laugh because oftentimes we find there isn't a problem. There's just no communication.
Yeah, I think you brought up the work we do. I'll start by saying that I think every listener here knows this intimately from their familial relationships, because we all have those things that are just not talked about in the family. And if you don't, gosh, lucky you. That's amazing. But this is especially funny in work environments where we most encounter it, because these are not familial dynamics. There shouldn't be, in a healthy corporate environment or work environment, a culture of we don't talk about that here. That is antithetical to a healthy functioning business.
Yeah.
In fact, what we see, and you just spoke to, Kent, is that a lot of problems exist in the workplace because there actually is a culture of we don't talk about that here, or there's a prevailing culture just among all of us that keeps us, as we said, from asking what's actually going on, from asking for somebody's perspective, from asking where they're coming from.
Yeah. So in the work we do, we pretty much always do some kind of an intake, whether it's with an individual or a team or whatever. And so often the roadblocks that people are having, we'll just stick with the team thing, the coworker thing. Oftentimes in these intakes, there's a big narrative about what somebody's doing or what they're thinking or how they're undermining this. And it's like, okay, well, that had to have been an uncomfortable conversation. Oh, no, I haven't talked to this person. I'm just assuming, because if I did that, this is what I would be signaling. And we are astounded. I'm remembering we've talked about this in a prior podcast, and it's worth repeating and repeating again. We are astounded at all the mind reading that goes on. It's like, you members of this dysfunctional team have this entire network of thoughts, each varying per the individual on the team, but it comes together to form this network of, he means he's really doing this, they're doing this, that is entirely, I don't want to say false, because we always say a clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, a stop clock
A stop
is right
clock is right
twice a day.
twice a day. Yeah, I mean, we can guess what, but all the anguish and the drama, and in this case, there's, a consultant who's come in. All this is worth not talking, not trying to mind read rather than confront. And I'm really proud of us, because it's actually why we developed TwoFinder.
Yeah.
Our two kind of main stage offerings have been ViewFinder for individuals who want to figure out what they're made of, starting with their personality, and TeamFinder. And we realized, Caanan, I think it was actually you who came up with it, this need for a TwoFinder, because it really starts with, of course, yourself. But then after that, it starts with your relationship with each of your coworkers. And I think it's funny, because when we rolled this out, people would be like, TwoFinder, I'm not dating this person. And we're like, yeah, no, these relationships are important, just as important as, well, no, not just as important.
Yeah, in some cases they may be.
Yeah, that's
Spend
true.
a lot of time with these people.
Yeah, so developing TwoFinder, and kind of how eye-opening that became for people to get insight not only into themselves as two individuals, but also then to learn about each other's styles.
Yeah, I think it's important to note here that, without making this a sales pitch, that ViewFinder does work great for family members or couples. I think it's actually like, must read kind of work.
Yeah.
For couples. But in the workplace, it's so helpful, because by learning about another person's personality, what motivates them, what their strengths are, what drives them,
Exactly.
you can stop centering other people's behaviors in your own experience and start seeing it from their perspective, and it starts to open a dialogue, so that you can actually be more comfortable just asking a person, why did you do that?
Yeah.
What were you thinking in that moment? And now I don't have to guess.
Yeah. What's really cool about this personality thing is you begin to understand other people's motivation. So it helps not only with the problem at hand or whatever's happening in the here and now, but when you understand something deeper, which is somebody's motivation, the way they move through the world, then the next time something similar happens or whatever, you have a better understanding of their motivation, and you can be more realistic in how you assess why they're doing what they're doing. It's really about more understanding and compassion, because when you bring understanding and compassion, you really want to know where somebody's coming from, what they're talking about. You want to have confirmed information, and not like with so many of our clients or this book I was just reading, not be relying on a network of guessing and thinking that'll bring you any satisfaction, or thinking that'll help you sleep better at night, because it absolutely won't.
Yeah, as we've been talking, I was actually thinking about how you and I, Kent, we did this work. Not TwoFinder, we hadn't developed TwoFinder at the time.
I have forgotten, but yes.
So we essentially did what we developed TwoFinder for.
Yeah.
Early in our relationship,
Yeah.
where we did our learned about our personalities and then shared those things.
Yeah.
And it was a really profound moment for us.
Yeah, you're blowing my mind bringing that up, because I can remember this was my kind of what got me interested in deepening my education.
Yeah.
It got you interested too in learning about how this can impact somebody so profoundly, how knowing yourself can impact someone so profoundly. Because reading about my own personality, remember this? Like, you felt the same way.
Yeah.
I felt like somebody was in my brain.
Yeah. And that insight that you get about yourself, like you start to understand why you do certain things or why you are motivated by certain things, but then also understanding your partner. Like when I learned about your type, oh my gosh, there were so many things that, just little things that I
Yes.
consider foibles or personal slights.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't push his chair in. Why does he hate me?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally that thing.
Stupid little things
Yes.
that actually within a relationship start to add up to real drama.
Yeah.
When I learned about your personality and vice versa, so many of those things just disappeared. Those little issues disappeared because I now understood where you were coming from,
Yeah.
what your motivations were, and I could stop taking things personally that had, back to what we talked about last week, nothing to do with me. They're just the way you move through the world.
Yeah.
And I could offer more grace and talk about sleeping better at night when you know that somebody isn't like not shutting the closet door because they want to ruin your life.
Because they're trying to antagonize you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really nice thing. I definitely recommend anybody in a partnership, a relationship of any kind, but definitely a romantic relationship, do this work. Do this work for sure.
Yeah. So we've done a lot with this, and it's making me think of, one of the big things we talk about when we're doing a client project is, oh my gosh, okay, they need to better understand that it's personality. It's not personal. We've even done, I think, another podcast or blog post by this name. It's such a big thing. And I think about when I did my MBA specialization in global organization development, and I had to study how global cultures handle interaction. And it was interesting because we went to Southeast Asia at that time, which is where I kind of focused a lot of this work on. And, at the time, especially, and still, you did not ask a boss what they meant or for more information, like was, I believe it's a little less so now, was considered absolute prying. But at the time, work world that was becoming much more global, and of course now is completely global, these things get so tricky in workplaces because you're dealing not only with the dynamic in your own culture, but you're dealing with the dynamic of the cultures that comprise your team and your company. And there's so many differences. And the one truth is, of course, honoring people's hard and fast cultural rules, the more you're able to have some kind of dialogue that everybody can buy into. Like you said,
Yeah.
this was sounding like a sales pitch, but the bottom line is stopping mind reading and asking, having dialogue. You will be 50% more effective. And most importantly, you will sleep 50% better, at least each night, when you quit mind reading, because it's kind of the genesis of this episode, talking about how mind reading is so painful because you, the person trying to put together what's going on, you're the one losing most of the sleep.
Yeah.
But of course, it's this other person, these other people, these coworkers, whatever, they're trying to figure out. So why are we still mind reading? The worst thing that can happen is, I'm going to get all tropey here and say, you can be told no or whatever, but it's a heck of a lot better than living inside your head and just trying to guess what's going on.
I remember you doing this work when we were in Southeast Asia. We were actually a little insight into our early life. You were writing a paper while we were in Bangkok about corporate culture in Thailand. And
Yeah.
it was a bit of a mind trip. I was thinking, speaking of culture, here in the US, I think a big problem is our hyper individuality.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from wanting to pry or ask people how they're feeling or ask where they're coming from. But I also think it kind of drives us to believe we already know what other people are thinking and what their motivations are. And so I think we here in the US, we have to get past that idea that hyper individualism keeping us from building the very connections we need in order to make our lives more comfortable, in order to reduce the drama and all the anxiety and having those sleepless nights.
So, thinking of productive ways to kind of conclude this and kind of tools for going forward, I think about how we're Gen X. We get hyper individualism. We get extreme sensitivity to, hey, that's their thing. Let them do their thing. Don't try to box them in.
Yeah.
Because we are so into the power of the individual and the choice of the individual and the freedom of the individual and the empowerment of the individual that it can become a little tricky, but there is a way, even with this mindset that we share, there's a way that you can honor that within a person and gracefully and with curiosity come at these things that have you sort of flummoxed to ask in a real safe way, where were you going with this? What are you thinking of this? I'm having a tough time reading this. So I think even in these situations, like with our mindset,
Yeah.
let people do what they need to do and stay out of their way. Of course, with the work we do, we're constantly having to move past that while respecting it.
Yeah.
And learning their motivation.
Yeah, I think there are two ways to look at this. There's the hyper individualism that you and I exhibit as Gen Xers that says sort of like stay out of people's way, don't get up in their stuff, and let them live their life, do their thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's very good. That does not exclude building relationships and asking people to tell you what they're thinking or doing. Yeah, you do have to get over some of that hyper individualism in order to do that. But that really is a sort of get over yourself, just, ask. But there's also an element of F your feelings in that hyper individualism, something you and I don't have at all because we're very feelings oriented. And if that rings true to you, that F your feelings mindset, that's when you're going to have to exercise completely, because that is a complete blocker to understanding other people's motivations. And that's just going to bring so much drama in your life. And you may think it won't. You may think you're somehow protecting yourself from the drama that comes from that, but you're not.
Yeah, it's a blocker too. Just like you said, it's a total blocker. We've all seen this movie, and I think we just watched one like a week ago where, it's like some atrocious thing happens and it's like, that's just how he is, son. And it's like,
oh, that was good. Your character work.
We don't do that in this family. And it's like, I know we talked about this in our last episode too, just these things that are couched as helpful or like an operational manual is really just a bunch of bunk, because it's a way to avoid doing something slightly difficult.
Totally.
So that you can move past something. So this has me thinking about mind reading, how we get past it. Think about those times when you had something all figured out. We were actually just brainstorming this. We came up with so many things. We're not even going to share examples. We've already shared examples. Think about those times. Laugh about those times. We've been laughing. Laugh about those times where you've had something all figured out and you realized, I had that totally wrong. It's helpful to do that, because then you start to learn how often we create these mind-reading narratives based on something somebody did one time 6 years ago. You don't even know the latest chapter of their life, or based on something someone has done 0 times ever, and you've just decided it fits the narrative. So yeah, examine those times you've had it all figured out. And that'll motivate you to be a little more inquisitive, to tell yourself that it's not prying, it's actually just connecting, because this is all about connecting.
And inquisitive is the word here, and we'll just end this with some really, really basic but profound advice. So here's how to stop the mind reading. It's just 2 words. Just ask. It's time for Worth the Time, a segment where we share something that we think is worth the time. Speaking of drama, Kent has a worth the time that is so high drama.
Yeah, so I talked about in the closeout examining times where you've had it all figured out. And those are like the more high stakes times regarding your work and family and all that stuff. But my worth the time is all about that all figured out attitude. And it is the Netflix documentary Unknown Number, the high school catfish. Have you watched it? If you haven't watched it, those around you probably have. We've been throwing this out to friends like, hey, well, we always exchange movies and documentaries and books and TV with friends. And this is one of those times where every time we've gotten to that point in a friend get together and we've mentioned this, they've all been like, my God, it's complete trash, but it's so good. So what happens is, and this has been pretty much the case with everybody we've talked to,
be careful. Don't give any spoilers away, because this one is just such a juicy, like, oh my God, I had it all figured out and I was so wrong.
This is what happens is it's a documentary. I and a lot of other people kind of moves along, and you kind of think you have a basic idea. You kind of have it all figured out. That's our theme, all figured out. And you get to the point, it's a complete record scratch, right? Like, where you are grabbing your head like, wait, what? Like the Sixth Sense, wait, what? Kind of thing.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Is that like, I need to go back and rewatch this because how did I miss this?
Yeah. So you have 2 things you have to do. Number 1, watch Unknown Number, the high school catfish, and see how quickly you get into, oh, I've got this all figured out or whatever. And then number 2, challenge yourself to actually raise the stakes and do the, what do I think I have all figured out in your real life, so that you quit mind reading and strive for connection and less judgment. Thanks for listening to the No Vacation Required podcast. For more information, including services designed to help you build a life you don't need a break from, check out novacationrequired.com. And if you found this information helpful, please subscribe.